Stevens. Nice to see you, mate.
Right, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I think the last time I saw you in the flesh, I purchased this little number.
Yeah, that's the one I haven't ruined.
Yeah, I'm busy ruining it for you. Yeah, it's great. It's really cool. I use it in gigs all. Well, you remember gigs? I
remember vaguely.
I use it all the time, and I use it on the middle pickup most of the time because I find that that's a really good setting for if you're doing, I'm in Cardiff, so if you're doing stereophonics or Kings of Leon covers, that seems to cover all bases,
I like that about they're lovely guitars. I love Telecasters. I mean, I've still got the Telecaster I used, the Fist and Dead one. It's in storage at the moment because, but yeah, I had that and I put a bare knuckles metal pickup in the front, so you just get this massive fuzz thing I can do at the front, which is really cool. But you have to put a noise gate on it. But yeah, it's great. So no, I love Telecasters. They're fantastic guitars, really lovely.
Yeah, I always associate you with them because I think whenever I've seen you play, you've been using them.
Well, you say that. So I've got one of these now. I've got this Share Gold, which is quite nice. So they very kindly helped me to buy that. So sort of sent me it, and which is very kind. So I've got a few Share Golds. They're like a PRS really. So it's somewhere between a Telecaster and a Les Paul, I suppose. Nice. But they're a bit like this. They're a 70s guitar they brought back from the dead. I mean, I haven't played this one as much recently because I've bought a few guitars during lockdown. So
what's this?
Which is a Squier 70 Strat, which is kind of what I played during lockdown mostly. So for demoing stuff and making horrible noises. So I really enjoyed that one. But the Share Gold's a fantastic guitar for live playing. The Squier tuning heads wouldn't take it for live. I don't think so.
You'd smash that out of tune within 30 seconds, wouldn't you? You'll be flapping hands.
Yeah, very easily damaged. Yeah.
So you have been demoing and stuff during lockdown, then?
Yeah. So we got pretty much. We finished a new album's worth of demoing stuff. Pretty much got that done. Probably demoed about 30, 40 songs, and then we got it down to sort of 10 that we're about to record the drums for. But it's just been so hard. Basically, we were in March last year. We went out to we did a warm up gig in Islington.
I saw it
in a basement.
Warm down gig.
and all our gear went into storage to go to the Netherlands a few days later to go to the Prognosis Festival with and all those guys.
Anathema, yeah.
And it's still in storage, waiting to go to the Netherlands, as are we. So Anathema split up, unbelievably. So,
I know, that's terribly sad news.
It is, because, I mean, my mate, Charlie from Knifewell, Charlie Cameron. Yeah, he was a lovely man. Yeah. He just got in Anathema. I thought, oh, great, I know some of the Anathema guys, and I know some of the other bands play. Bruce Sorb was going out there, so yeah, great, massive jolly up in the Netherlands. It'll be great, And then the incident happened, didn't it? So and it's really weird that. But at the time, people were sort of saying, this could be a big thing. I thought, well, yeah. And we were all, I think we just sort of gone through the stage of sort of washing our hands a lot, and that sort of vague panic. But yeah, we never sort of got past that stage really. And we 2 years later, and the next gigs we're doing in April next year, which will be with Prognosis Festival with Catatonia and all the sort of quite a few prog metal bands and stuff, and then HRH Prog Festival, and we're doing a gig with Evil Blizzard. So we've got 3 gigs next year, and that's just going to be. I can't even imagine doing a gig again. It just feels weird. It's going to feel, and our punter's going to feel comfortable going into a room that's like that. It's rammed full of. Are people going to feel? Would you feel comfortable doing that at the moment?
I don't know at the moment. I don't know. Part of me says, get me in there, get me in that room. I don't care who's playing. But there's another part of me that will stop and look around and think, actually, it's okay.
That's how I feel. I feel exactly the same. Part immense excitement about seeing live music again and having that connection, and part, I mean, especially the gigs we do, because I mean they're generally small venues, rammed full of people, which is kind of what we've cultivated over the course of the 10 years doing it. But I don't quite know how we're going to get back to that again. It's going to take a while. I think it's going to take a while for people to get confident again, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But April 2022, maybe touch wood by then, herd immunity, and we would have come round, and obviously we're just coming out of. We're recording this on Freedom Day, as some people are calling it, and we'll soon be finding out the fallout of all this. And maybe by April, things and mindsets would have changed. I don't know. I
think you've got to win. It's not just a case of you've got to win hearts and minds, haven't you? You've got to get people to want to do it. That's the And I think once people, I think it'll be a gradual process. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I just can't imagine it at the moment. But there's festivals going ahead, aren't there? And the nightclubs are opening. I mean, I don't like nightclubs at the best of times, to be honest. But I can't imagine that being is that going to be a thing where we're all going back into these? I don't know. It's very hard to say at the moment.
And in the nightclubs, half of them will be 15 or 16 and won't have been jabbed anyway. So who knows what's going to happen? It's like a petri dish.
yeah, I can't imagine anything worse.
No. Mind you, I couldn't imagine anything worse at the time when I was a kid.
Yeah, no, me. But yeah, no. So I just don't know. I mean, I'm hopeful and optimistic at present, but it's very hard to say. And we haven't rehearsed since last March. I haven't seen the guys apart from we write on Zoom. So every Wednesday, or recently I started going around Kev's house to start writing again. But up until recently, we just had a weekly Zoom, and then we just send files to each other. It's just that's weird. I mean, it's just not the same, is it?
It can't be, especially for your sort of music as well. You want to be responding in the room. You want to be making those air molecules wiggle. I mean,
I suppose we've got the advantage that we've had the band together for 10 years in this lineup, and with the guys, we've been playing together since we were kids. So I mean, in different bands and different mates' bands and stuff, and so we have that advantage that we've got that connection as players. And things we tend to like the same things. But this is the first album, like this record, we've got vocals. Kev, our bass player's singing for the first time.
He's stepping up to the mic, is he?
Right, yeah. Finally. They took him 9 years, or ever since we last spoke about it.
What's his voice like?
A really nice voice. Really, I mean, he was always a really good singer. And he sang in our previous bands. And it was kind of a case of we wrote songs that we felt the vocals would work on, and it wasn't a case, we're always up for trying new ideas, and there's instrumentals on there as well, but I think you've got to keep pushing it. I think you've got to keep trying new stuff, because that's what the exciting thing is, trying new things and seeing what happens, rather than it would be really safe for us to put out another instrumental album and keep the audience happy and things like that, but what's the point of doing that?
It's so funny, because I think in the past you and I have talked about instrumental music. There'll always be a ceiling of popularity that you can have playing instrumentals, and you were sort of saying you were cool with that, and if the vocal thing happens, it will happen. Obviously, now it sounds like a nice little mishmash of the two.
I mean, there's plenty of instrumental stuff on there. I mean, I think it's just a case of we when we were writing it, it just happened to be that we thought, well, that sounds good with the vocal. Right? We'll try that. You know what I mean? But because there was never a rule that we wouldn't. No. And I mean, I like lots of instrumental stuff, but I like lots of pop. I mean, I love Husker Du and Bob Mould and all, that sort of thing, and Donovan Jr. and lots of stuff that's not that's not instrumental widdly stuff. And I don't think we were ever about widdly guitar solos and stuff like that. It was never our thing. We were always a focused sort of rock band that didn't have a singer. And then, but we did have a singer hidden away on bass, which was quite handy. But
what's his sort of tone? Who would you compare him to if you had to? Is he a screamer, or is he?
No, not at all. No. He's quite chilled vocally, actually. But he's very tuneful, and it's not death metal vocals or anything like that. As much as I love death metal vocals,
yeah.
I mean, I'd have been up for that, to be honest. It would have been interesting to see the looks on people's faces if we, I love Carcass, I love death metal, so I mean, but but that was never going to be the way we're going to go. He's got a lovely voice, actually, really sort of rich voice. And it was just one of those things that we had a track it worked on, and then we had a few tracks it worked on. And I think about half, more than half the album's got vocals on it. So it'd be interesting to see how people sort of go for it. But I think if you don't take chances, I mean, that's where the fun of it, isn't it? You know what I mean? And if we were looking to make money out of this, we certainly aren't, and we certainly there's no commercial consideration. Our goal is to make the money back we cost making it. That's our absolute dream.
One day we will break even.
Yeah, that's it. No, but that's it. If we can just make the money back, that's great, because then we can keep doing it. It's when we start losing lots of money the problems start. And I think for most bands at our level, that's the goal, really, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, everybody I know, even in bands much more popular than we are, the thing is just to be able to keep making records and keep making records on a grander scale than the last time. You know what I mean? So if you look at like Mogwai's last album, right, that had a lot more vocal tracks on it, and a lot more. He's almost had like an indie pop sensibility on some of it. I mean, and I think Mogwai band I really admire, because they could have just knocked out those post-rock albums over and over again, but they've been really progressive. They've done some really weird synthy stuff, some orchestral stuff, and then they've gone this sort of guitar pop thing they've just done. I think that's great, man. It's just like, that's what it's all about, trying new things all the time, isn't it?
Didn't that go to #1 album?
Yeah, unbelievably. Because I mean, you're just like, what, Mogwai #1? It's like, but it's fantastic, isn't it? Because
good news.
They're a band that's built up through just massive integrity as well. I think they'll be seen like King Crimson is seen now, in that sense of they never sold out. They never tried to do anything just to be cool, or because they thought that it'd grow the audience. They just kept on going and kept on trying to do cool stuff with it. And I think that's the art of it, really, isn't it?
Absolutely right. So when will you? How will you record this album then? If it's written. So
yeah, the idea. So it's all pretty much written. Stu's got a electric kit at his house. So in the interim, Stu's moved down to Dorset over the course. So he's not in London anymore. Right. So he's been writing on his electric kit and then sending the files back to Kev in London. I've been sending my files across from recorded in my back of my front room in my Turp 2 down in Tottenham, and then so I've been sending them across to Walthamstow, which is literally just a stone throw away, where Kevin, and then and Steve's been putting his guitars on as well. So it's a question of sending files around, which is a bit like a Big B Train. That's how they do it anyway, isn't it? Because they're all international and stuff, aren't it?
Yeah, certainly on the last one, because poor Rickard and Nick, they couldn't get into the country. So
yeah, I mean, so I think, and talk to Robin. That's how he works with Cosmograph. A lot of their stuff is done. I've played guitar on Cosmograph records before, and I just sent him files. He made it sound good. So that's kind of a modern thing. That's how Pineapple Thief records get made as well. But we'd never worked like that. We'd literally written every album by just nodding a wink in the front room of the rehearsal place. You know what I mean? So
even stuff like, if you're on Zoom, I mean, the latency and the timing, how does that work?
You can't do it. Yeah. So what you have to do, we bring up the Pro Tools file, and then we overdub stuff and send the files across, because you can't get it in time. It's impossible. No. So you all have the session, or we send the demo across, and I work in Logic, Kev's works in Pro Tools. So, and then I send him the most sort of plain guitar track that's not even got an amp model on it, and then he messes about at the other end. But I tend to record it with effects as well. So I suppose over lockdown I've ended up buying lots of effects pedals as well, which is a very dangerous thing. So
this has always been a bit of an addiction of yours.
I've had a problem.
You've got an FX problem.
Yeah, but I've only got very few vices, but buying guitar pedals is one of them, unfortunately.
What's the go-to one at the moment then?
I bought that during lockdown. That Univine.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Nice. Like that. What else did I get? No, that's a really nice chorus. That Solid Gold Effects one, which is like, it's like a wobble. It's like a broken record wobble, which is really cool. Yeah, I've just got too many pedals, really.
It's not even like you can go to Denmark Street and try these things.
No, so you end up. I got a guy to make me a Fierce and the Dead one. That's
what effect is that?
It's a it's a recreation of an old bass head. So it's like a massive sort of fuzz sound, which sounds really good. I've got too many fuzz pedals, and but anything to try and get a different sound. You know what I mean? Something that's going to be slightly more, just something we've not done before. Really, I mean, I think that's the thrill of it for me, is because ultimately this isn't our. This isn't a commercial thing. This is something we do because we love doing it. Is to try out new things all the time. So we can just, every record we make, I want to use different guitar sounds. Like, and this album's got a lot more synths on it as well. I mean, the last album had quite a few synths on it, but this, one of the other things of having Pro Tools and having infinite amounts of synthesizer plugins is just be able to go right. Let's try loads of synth. Let's try Hammond organ. Let's try strings on that. Oh God, we've made one of those albums. But but you know what I mean. I suppose everybody's done this during lockdown, in that they just had time. And also, normally we've been gigging. We just done 9 years since the first album came out. We were doing 20 or 30 gigs a year every year. So and it wasn't just that we were doing the gigs, but we'd have to be constantly rehearsing to stay at the same sort of level of being able to play the songs. So every week we'd rehearse every week, and probably do a gig every other week or every 2 or 3 weeks. But we'd be constantly rehearsing. So we've had a break, and in that break you suddenly go, oh, let's get a synthesizer out. Let's get guitars with tremolos on. Let's try different things. I got a baritone for the first time as well. It was the Squier baritone guitar.
Electric.
On that, and it was just a really good opportunity to try new things. So in a funny sort of a way, I've actually quite enjoyed it. Doing different stuff. But because we got on, for all those years, we kind of got onto the Prog festival circuit, and we never got off, really. I mean, if you look back through Prog magazine over the course of the last 10 years, virtually every Prog festival will be like, and the Fierce and the Dead, and about 2014, 15, I think we did Art Tangent, Rambling Man, Summer's End, all of them. Like, we were constantly sort of doing like Cosfest and all these sort of.
You did Rosfest, didn't you?
Yeah, Rosfest in the States and Freak Valley in Germany, and we had a great time. I mean, it's been brilliant.
Of all of those, is there one what was the biggest one in terms of turnout?
Rambling Man, that was huge. Yeah. We were the first act on, and there was no one on the main stage. So this is like Whitesnake headlining and all these. So I thought we'd go on and there'd be no one watching us. I thought this would be fine. Yeah, if you get 200 or 300 people watching it, I'll be over the moon. And we went on, and because there was nothing else on, and there was thousands of people there, they're all watching us, which is brilliant for us. I think it really did us a lot of good in terms of getting the name of the band out on that. But it was so weird because we were so nonchalant as well. We weren't frightened. I'd had a couple of beers. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning. I was just like, having a couple of beers, chilled out here. It's great. Yeah, no one would be watching us. We'd be fine. And it was just it was brilliant to play to that massive audience, but certainly an experience, And I mean, one of the things I realised that playing those big shows, and since, we've done Art Tangent, we've done quite a few, the bigger ones. The big shows are really easy because you've got good sound on stage. You got monitor mixes. You got, there's not some drunk bloke trying to land on your head and stuff like that. So it's just so much easier, and I'd love to do more of that. So, but I think it's going to take time, and I really hope that those festivals are resilient through that. They can keep going. I mean, people must have lost so much money.
Yeah, you do wonder which ones are going to be able to keep their head above water.
Well, that's Rosfest. I mean, hopefully that'll rise again. But I mean, I think with the festivals as well, I think people will be desperate to get back out next summer. And we just, like you said before, we'll just have to see what happens. It's going to be a very hard call, isn't it?
It is, and it's got me thinking of you moving to London, fresh faced from Northampton in the 2000s. with your was it Ibanez? Was
Ibanez
artisan?
Yeah, and so I moved down here and ended up doing all those acoustic shows. I mean, that was really good fun. I started doing open mics initially. I mean, I came down, I didn't know what else to do, and there was just these open mic things. So you turn up and play. There's a bloke doing poetry, but it's quite an experience.
Yeah. Well, I've been listening back to some of your early stuff, and for you to, do an open mic and play that sort of music, that took some stones to do that.
Well, I think it was just naivety. I just had no idea this was wrong. But I kind of got really confident at it, and I realised you can get away with playing really odd stuff if you play the guitar over your head or behind you, behind your head like that, or threw the guitar around or did loads of interesting things on stage. You get away with murder. And if you're really confident as well and you showed no fear, which, after first few, you're terrified, but the more you do, and because you're doing more and more of the, and then by the time I got to do the gigs where it was quite big audiences and it was quite, I was doing like the gigs with like John Gomm and some of the really sort of Steve Rothery and those sort of guys who had big audiences. You go and play to sort of 400 or 500 people, but you got confident. It didn't freak you out at all because you'd done so many of them. So it was. I loved it. It was really good fun. I wouldn't want to do it again, but I loved it.
You wouldn't want to do it again, you say?
Well, there's no point doing things. I did everything I wanted to do with it. You know what I mean? It was. I did four acoustic albums, and eventually getting more and more electric, and more and more sort of. I pushed it as far as I could. And you listen to some of those albums, and some of the stuff is so. It's quite odd.
It's out there. Some of it's quite out there.
It's quite crimson-y, sort of odd. So
yeah, but you're 6'5", aren't you? I've just got visions for you playing the guitar behind you, everybody smashing it against the roof in some of these old pubs when you first started out.
I used to do a thing. I used to sit at the loop going, throw the guitar in the air, land on the end, and just do it. The people love all that, and you can get away with really odd stuff. As long as you present it in a quiet, and you're not too pretentious as well. It's like, check out my art. And if you present it in a way that's just joyful and not too pretentious, and I'm just trying to play some funny noises here and not try and be cool. You know what I mean? But I think, I had a great time doing it. I don't regret it at all.
Absolutely. And you listen to sort of stuff. Sorry, say again.
It's a bit lonely after a while.
Yeah, it must be.
And you end up going to Blackpool to play for half an hour, supporting a Genesis tribute band. There were some dark moments.
All that way for half an hour. But so gigs like Steve Rothery and Fish, I think, as well. And how do these things sort of happen? Do these people see you, or was it word of mouth, or how did it happen for you?
Yeah, a lot of word of mouth, and people gradually got to. I just. Relentless, and relentless, not unrelentless, but relentless in my social media presence on all the social media platforms, and just talking to lots of people. I used to do flyering. I used to do, I sort of grew up listening to the Dead Kennedys and all those sort of American hardcore bands, and I kind of took up I always loved that hardcore aesthetic of you hand out flyers and you make your own label and you do everything yourself, and I loved all that. And that was kind of where I coming from with it. And rather than I wasn't much. I love like King Crimson and the Mad Vision Orchestra. It wasn't I wasn't listening to neo prog or anything. It wasn't my thing at all. But I just kind of want that DIY culture thing and trying to do interesting stuff with it. So I think the name just gradually got out there. And I can't remember I got a lot of the gigs. It got to the point where I was just doing loads of them. And I did the ones with Steve Rothery, and I thought, this probably isn't going to get much better than this, because I don't want to headline stuff. I didn't want to have a band. I was going to have a band. I already had a band project that I wanted to do, which is the Fierce and the Dead stuff. There was nowhere else to go with it. I kind of taken it as far as I could, and I'd had a brilliant time. I absolutely loved it. And I had lots of good times drinking and, just made loads of friends and stuff, and met other guys, Prog magazine guys, and just so many nice people, and I'd had a really good time with it. I just sort of thought, well, rather than sort of build it, try and do more with it, when there's probably nowhere else you can go, I'd rather focus on other things really. And if you listen to the records, the first album I did, the acoustic one.
Echo.
It's all acoustic guitar stuff. So it's just being literally a loop pedal, and I wanted to prove it could be done because it wasn't. It was before delay pedals. Loop pedals was a big thing. And it became more of a, obviously Robert Fripp had done it. It wasn't anything original, but it wasn't. It was before. It's probably pre-Ed Sheeran. Is probably the.
Well, do you know what? I was trying to think of this. The first time I saw a loop pedal in action was that Katie Tunstall set on Jules Holland.
Yeah, Jules Holland. Yeah. And I loved. I thought she was
the Black Horse and the Cherry Tree. She stood in for Coolio or something like that, I think, and that was a really. I think that brought that technology to a lot of people's attention, I think, in the mainstream. How did you come across it?
I think reading nerdy guitar magazines, which I was doing all through the 1990s. It's reading nerdy guitar magazines and listening to Robert Fripp's stuff. But I listened to Robert Fripp's stuff and I thought, well, I don't want to do that because he's really good at that, and I don't need another person doing that. So
the sort of Frippatronics stuff.
I thought, well, and I'd listened to a lot of the people using loop pedals at the time. There was a lot of people ripping off Fripp.
Who? And there's a lot of people.
I can't remember. It was on these sort of underground looping communities.
Right.
There's a lot
underground looping communities.
I think so, underground looping. Yeah. Well, there's some really talented people in that scene as well. But there was a lot of people who would do, this stuff that I think, well, I love Robert Fripp's stuff, and I think he's brilliant, but I don't want to do that because you're never going to be as good as him. So what's the point of that? You know what I mean? I'm never going to be as good as Robert Fripp. I'm never going to be as good as John McLaughlin or Alan Holdsworth. So what's the point of, I love all those guys, but why would I try and copy that? Because I'm never going to be, but I can do, they probably don't listen to Dead Kennedys. They probably don't listen to Carcass. And if I can take bits of that and put into it, but maybe I can come up with something that's a bit different. So that was always my thing with it. But yeah, there's a lot of people who grab a loop pedal and do those washy sounds, and the fuzz, that Robert Fripp, there's all that stuff. And it's like, well, you're never going to be as good as him. So there's no point going down that road of the Robert Fripp Appreciation Club. Much as I like his playing, there's lots of what you can do.
Yeah, but you sort of took it in a place of your own, and I know listening through to your stuff again, it does grow. It becomes more electronic. You start off, there's that. It's lazy to call it flamenco. It's a rhythmic acoustic guitar strummy thing. Is a technical term, and. But then you get into Ghost, and things start getting a bit more electro.
I mean, each album I tried to do different things with it, and then it got sort of more post-rocky and sort of like the Mogwai things and the Nick Drake stuff, and less. I think as it went on, less and less sort of flash playing and more sort of intricate. And then by the last one I did, for Esoteric, I mean that's quite. There were certain things I wanted to prove a point on. That I could do the Mahavishnu Orchestra thing, but you're never as good as that. But those sort of chordal ideas that were Mahavishnu-y, King Crimson-y sort of things.
You're talking about Lucid.
Yeah, that the Lucid one. That's got all the sort of King Crimson, Mahavishnu, you know, those, and then it's got some quite Mogwai stuff on there as well. So it's kind of a mixture of those, of sort of the post rock and the jazz rock stuff.
Which tune on there do you think sort of sums up that sort of the pinnacle of that for you?
There's one called The Ascent, which is I've got Jem Godfrey on keyboards, and Pat Mastelotto from King Crimson on drums, and Lorenzo, my mate, on bass. I mean, that was like, well, I've got the bloke from King Crimson here, and I've got Jem pretty much nailing Jan Hammer. And there's, you know, I can't really take this. I've done this now, haven't I?
Yeah, I think that's probably. I'll leave that one there.
There's no more Mahavishnu you can go with this. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
I kind of thought, well, I've done this now, so I don't really need to make another album like this.
And so the Fierce and the Dead was sort of running in parallel.
Yeah.
When did they sort of start becoming a thing?
Well, the first we recorded the first EP in 2010. So we basically, that was me and a couple of mates just having a jam because we were going to try and record some stuff for my solo record, and we just thought, oh, this is really good. Let's just put it out as a single. And it did all right. People liked it.
Did it?
Yeah, and then then each time we released something, it became more and more sort of developed this sort of cult audience, really, which is really cool. I mean, I don't really know how we did it, but it's really cool. And, you know, we've developed the sort of fan base gradually, sort of each release seemed to have gained more people. So we've probably lost people as well. But yeah, it's been really, I mean, it was you know, we've done 3 EPs, 3 albums and 3 live albums, and we've done loads of gigs with it as well. And it was like, you know, I just really enjoyed it. It was just so nice to be in a band with my mates as well. You know what I mean? They're people I've been friends with since school, you know.
You were schoolmates, weren't you? Yeah, because Kev, he produced the solo albums, didn't he?
Yeah. We've been mates. I mean, we were in a band when we first moved to London. And he left because he started a recording studio and he was a house engineer there. So that was his job at the time.
Okay.
And I was working in record shops and doing, you know, bits and bobs and trying to put bands together that failed every time. We'd go and do like 3 gigs at the Bull and Gate and die on our arse every time. You know what I mean?
It's nuts how nostalgic that makes me feel. You saying I used to work in a record shop. It feels like it from the days of yore now, doesn't it? That sort of... all these sort of wannabe musicians working in our price or wherever. Yeah.
And one of the cool things about being in London at the time as well, the people I was working in record shops with, there were loads of people like creative people, like filmmakers, or you have a lot of people who played in bands, lots of really interesting people. I would imagine that culture is not really there anymore because there's not many record shops.
Unless it must just be in a different form, because I think the impulse is still there amongst people of the age that we would have been back then. But it's just, it's all online now, is it?
I don't really know. I mean, I don't know where, because I've just lost touch, you know what I mean? But when I first came to lost touch reality, you know, when I was first in London, you know, I got a job and I worked in record shops for 9 years, and when I was doing the bands and doing all the music stuff as well, it's just it was a great place to network and meet people, and I've still got mates now from when I worked in record shops with them, you know what I mean? But it was really cool, really good fun, and I just wonder if what I would have done now. I'd probably, you know, I don't know what would have done if I moved to London now, but. Yeah, there's certainly a very creative scene. Although it was, you know, musically at the time when I first came, you know, the Libertines were massive. It was proper Libertines everywhere.
Franz Ferdinand, the XX, that sort of thing, wasn't it?
The last ebbs of post-Strokes indie.
Yeah.
And I think I quite like the Strokes, especially I like the first album, and some of the later stuff's got some quite interesting stuff on it. But you know, it was a bit it was like a bit. I'd missed the 90s in London had been a massive thing. You'd had really interesting bands and Britpop and all that stuff. But by the time I got there in 2001, there was a vague feeling the party was over, and the money was just running out of the record companies. Things were starting to go a bit wrong, and sort of Napster was coming in.
Yeah,
and a lot of the bands that were being signed at the time were sort of bands that were like a British version of Strokes, but not as good. You know what I mean? Like I say, the Libertines and people like that, and it was a very odd time for music, I think.
Yeah, certainly for music of a more progressive inclination.
So you want to play an 11/8? Come on then. No one's interested, Matt.
But,
no, it was just like, but annoyingly, right? And I only met Carvus like in 2010, but on the other side of London, Carvus and Cardiacs were busy doing all that sort of stuff. I just didn't know they were there. I never knew Carvus, and I never knew Cardiacs. The Cardiacs would have been like one of my favourite bands when I was a kid, but I'd never heard them. I never heard them until 2010 when I met Carvus. And if I'd come to London and met all those guys, I'm sure it would have been a completely different experience for me. You know what I mean? But I didn't become friends with him until then. You listen to. I was really into like Mr. Bungle, and who mercilessly ripped off Cardiacs, and I was really into Voivod and all the bands. When I met Carvus for the first time, it was just like, we're into all the same stuff. What's Cardiacs like? And I was like, oh, bloody hell, this is incredible.
Wow.
But I think they're a band that served very well by YouTube because they're quite a hard band to explain to people. But if you can just show them the videos on, for Gibber and Twitch on YouTube, people just go, "This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen." Mm-hmm. And I think they'll continue to grow as a band as well. I think they'll be, the cult of Tim Smith. I mean, which is Tim was a genius, but I mean, it's a shame when sometimes the cult comes after unfortunately the person's passed away, because he was what a talented guy, and by all accounts, I mean, I never met him, but he was a lovely man as well. So just so sad that how did we not know about this band?
But I mean, Fierce and the Dead sort of got cult written all over them, and they, I'm careful how you say that. I mean, what band starts their career with an album called "If It Carries On Like This, We're Moving to Morecambe"? You probably had your eyes on the cash register when you thought of that one.
It was definitely a very commercial move, but that record was once again we had 2 days of studio time at Kevad. I think he'd done a session for somebody, and we had 2 days of studio time in that studio in Wood Green that I can't remember the name of. But it was just like, off we go. We can go and do this. We got 2 days of session. Let's make an album. Great. Tuesday before he came around, we wrote the songs on the Tuesday afternoon, and we recorded them on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Really?
And we're still playing songs. Yeah, we're still playing 10 years later. We're still playing the same songs. It's just like, I wish I could do that again now. I wish I could just go, I've got this and I've got this. Let's make an album. Yeah, great. But now it takes me years to bloody do it. But at the time, I'm just like, we've got this, brilliant, right, okay. And I still really like that album as well. And there was so much of it that was, written very, very quickly. I think we had one rehearsal before it, so it was all done just on the as we go, really. But
so as the years have gone on, have you found that you for some reason you can't quite, you need longer time to be spontaneous?
Yeah, well, I think at the time as well, I didn't really think. It was just a bit of fun. Let's have a few cans of beer and see what happens. think because we'd been playing in bands together before that for years, we could just sort of knock it out, and it's got a really good atmosphere. But I think after that, we started to think about what we were doing, because initially we didn't care if no one listened to it. It was just like, it'd be nice if people listened to it, but it doesn't really matter.
Did you know Stu as well from back in the day as well?
Yeah. Stu was we played with bands in Stu in the 90s. Stu was in the year above at school, so it's a school band, just a school band. Yeah. So yeah, we'd all had, Stu was really into like Dead Kennedys and Sonic Youth and Black Flag and all that stuff. So he was never into proggy stuff at all. He's a hardcore drummer. That's his thing, really.
So when did you make the sort of start making the switch from like the Dead Kennedys and the more hardcore stuff to prog stuff?
Well, I'd always been into the Mahavishnu Orchestra and King Crimson because I had a guitar teacher who was into all that stuff. And
when you were how old?
About 15, 16. So I wanted to be into, I learned to play guitar because I was into Guns N' Roses and Iron Maiden and all that stuff. I love all that stuff still. I love Iron Maiden. Yeah.
What do you think of the new one, Matt? What do you think of the new tune?
All right, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Yeah. It's the lead player at the end, fantastic, absolutely brilliant lead player. I mean, I've only listened to it twice. I like it. I think if I listen to it 5 times, I'll probably love it. So when I see Maiden live, I break down tears every time I see them when they come on. Because when I was a kid, that was the reason I got into playing in bands. And they do that UFO intro and that, it just well up because it's just a magical thing. So
this guitar teacher, he sort of played you other stuff.
Yeah, got into Mahavishnu Orchestra, King Crimson, Alan Holdsworth, all that stuff. The sort of the jazz rock side of prog, but I'd never heard Genesis or Yes or anything like that, and I've never really listened to that sort of music at all. The symphonic rock stuff,
still
never really
doesn't do it for you.
Just don't get. I mean, I love King Crimson, and I love Mahavishnu, and I love that stuff. I don't see how that's in any way similar to that symphonic rock stuff. I don't mind some of the Genesis stuff. I like those Mellotron sounds and the Genesis stuff. I like the Giant Hogweed, stuff like that. But I've never really listened to a lot of it. What I've heard, I quite like, and like with Yes, I quite like, but I've got the attention span for it, to be honest. Okay. So it's a bit sort of, this is some of the prog stuff. I kind of think, well, perhaps that's a really good bit there. Perhaps if you'd worked on that good bit a bit more and didn't put the other bit that didn't fit with it on there, perhaps that would have been, perhaps that's a really good bit you got there, but you didn't need that bit, did you? Or that bit, and it's sort of, whereas with the Mahavishnu and King Crimson, they was kind of a thing of where they just had the good bits. They just had the, King Crimson songs aren't that complex in terms of, they're just really good riffs, really.
Really? They're not complex?
Yeah. Well, they are complicated, but there's central ideas of composition, like Red, the song Red. That's like a Nirvana-y riff, but they're really clever. The ideas are really clever, but they're not convoluted arrangements a lot of the time. So they're not going off. They don't do the riff from Red, then go onto a wiggly bit and just disappear off. They build the whole song around that central idea. And like Starless has got this genius chord, this verse, it's absolute genius. And then it does sort of wander off into this weird bit, but then it comes back into this brilliant melody. And there's a compositional thing going there that's really interesting to me. Whereas sometimes I listen to some of the sort of wiggly stuff, and it's just sort of just bits that together. It's like, well, whereas you listen to what King Crimson were doing, there was an idea, and they went off and did something else. But it was a composer at work. You know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't written by committee. It was written by people who actually were going somewhere. And I think that's what I find really exciting about, like with the Mahavishnu Orchestra as well, where there are these chord sequences and these melodies, and there was a magic to it, and a real magic to it. It's really exciting stuff.
When your guitar teacher was sort of getting you into the stuff, was there any particular pieces that you could play or liked playing that sort of got you hooked?
Well, it was kind of, there's the on this. This is probably too distorted for this, but I'm in drop C. The Fierce and the Dead's tuning is we tune to normal at the top, but we have drop C at the end or drop B. So it's a bit of a weird tuning because I always thought people when they said they tuned to B, I thought they just dropped the bottom string to B, but like Carcass would tune to just B.
B.
Yeah, no. Well, everything was relative B, so it was standard tuning, but with B is the E note. I read that wrong, and I thought it meant they just tuned the low string down to B. So everything we did would be in
drop B.
Yeah, so basically I got it wrong. I should have researched it more, really, but we're stuck with it now. So let's. It's a bit odd, but yeah. So it was a bit of a we ended up with this sort of. There's no messing about with that. That's not. That's heavy, and that was heavy in the same way as the Sabbath records I was into as well. Oh, God, it's the fuzz pedals, isn't it? That's a Russian fuzz war clone. But yes, so it's like. That's what excited me, that's you listen to that Dancer Maya sort of King Crimson thing. Well, that's massively different to all this messing about sort of I like some of the linear runs that some of the progressive bands do, but it's a very different thing. You know what I mean? And as someone who's into Carcass and to Napalm and all the grindcore stuff, and then I got into like Portishead and Radiohead and the Smiths and jazz and Miles Davis and all that sort of stuff, but it seemed to have the same sort of thing where it was compositional. It wasn't. They're not showing off their flash playing. It was like, this is heavy. This is properly, in the same way that Carcass or Megadeth or all the heavy stuff I like.
But there's a compositional logic to it as well. It isn't just, let's do this bit in D minor so I can show you my new...
Yeah, I just don't care about... I mean, I've done gigs with the Aristocrats, with Guthrie.
Yeah, wow.
He's the best guitarist I've ever seen. He's the best. You're never going to be better than him. He's worked out every... he's worked out every shortcut across the fretboard, but he's really musical as well. He's absolutely brilliant, right? But I just sort of listen to this as well. Oh, yeah, that is great, and I love it. But why would I want to do that? Because Guthrie's already done that, and he's never. I'm never going to get that good at it. I can do things that I can do things that are different. You know what I mean? And, there's a lot of the people playing the fuzzy, distorted. Like I like a lot of the stoner rock stuff, but it's like I want to hear them play some different chords for a change. I want to hear things that are different with it. So, like I said, I've been down that road of being a really obsessed with technique, and when I was a kid, definitely I went through.
Were you a shredder as a kid? Were you a harmonic minor type?
I like
Gilbert, yeah.
I mean, Paul Gilbert's awesome, and he's really musical. Actually, he's a really musical player.
His latest stuff is really quite vocal-esque. I think he's playing.
He's really into Todd Rundgren, apparently. Really into power pop and that.
He's appeared on a Todd Rundgren album, actually, one of his 90s ones. Yeah, but he was singing backing vocals. He wasn't playing guitar.
Well, no, he's a phenomenal guitarist and a really, really cool musician, I think. But it was, there's a lot of people doing that widdly sort of guitar sort of thing, and I kind of got there a few times. I just sort of thought, well, I want to move people. I want to do stuff that's that's going to make people. I mean, like I'm talking about Big B Train. Well, I went to see Big B Train, right? and they're phenomenal musicians, and I really like the guys. But there was some stuff where the brass section came in. You know, when they've got I'm getting a bit emotional, and I loved it. I thought it was brilliant.
You're in the book actually, because you were at the King's Place shows.
Yeah, they were brilliant.
And when they do things like Victorian Brickwork and East Coast Racer and that sort of thing, that gets something in your eye.
I love that. I thought those King's Place shows were really special, really inspiring, because they were doing something that was really emotional, and they weren't, they're obviously really good players, but that wasn't what it was all about. There was so deeper going on. I thought, this is great. You know what I mean? This is really interesting.
Once again, composition going on, dynamics and all that. But coming back to The Feast of the Dead then, was it Spooky Action that sort of really started seeing you get noticed?
It was a very gradual... I mean, kind of, yeah. I think Spooky Action got us onto... Twang put us on in the prog world. Twang put us on at the Celebrate Festival, second on the bill to Frost, and there was like 300 or 400 people saw us there. And
I was there. I enjoyed it. You were great.
And I think people hadn't seen what hadn't seen anything like we were doing. I think that was a really useful thing. It was very kind of him to do that. I think that really helped. I think we did Art Tangent. That got a lot of people from the post-rocky world.
Did you see a sort of an upswell in support after playing there? Do festivals pay off in terms of finding new audience?
Well, you don't make money doing festivals at all. I mean, I can guarantee that. But they certainly, people do see you, and you certainly, the Hawkwind shows were really good. When we opened for Hawkwind, we did a couple of Hawkwind shows. We did Rambling Man with Hawkwind.
How did that come about, Matt? How did Hawkwind's latch onto you?
I got to be mates with Mr. Dibbs. I don't know how I became mates with Mr. Dibbs. And he's just a lovely guy. When he was the singer, and he was so good with. I mean, that Hawkwind lineup they had with him. Can't remember the lad on bass. The bass player was fantastic. Like, it's a real sort of Hawkwind, real sort of Lemmy bass player. Really good bass player. Really, they were jamming. They're properly just jamming out, and they were, this is a band that's been going like 50 odd years, and they were doing properly interesting improv stuff live. It's really cool. And yeah, so he just really liked us, and he's in Evil Blizzard now, and we're doing gigs with Evil Blizzard because we same association really. Because Evil Blizzard are another band I kind of really relate to because they're kind of a psychedelic, sort of riffy stuff, and they're really spacey as well. I really like Evil Blizzard. We did the Hawkwinds Festival. Hawkwinds Festival was mad. The first band on at Hawkwinds Festival was Hawkwinds Roadies, plus most of Hawkwind and Dave Brock doing it. Hawkwind's great. So it's basically Hawkwind and Hawkwind's drummer. They were on first, and they did the greatest hits set. They did all the early, and then we had to follow that. So we had to follow Hawkwind at Hawkwind's own festival.
You'd have thought everybody would have just gone home after that.
So we're done. We can't possibly win it. But it was brilliant. They were so nice, and Hawkwind's fans were great. Yeah. We've definitely picked up some Hawkwind's audience. And I think, that led us on to doing like a lot of the psychedelic festivals we did for a few years. We did all the sort of, there's lots of underground psych festivals like Cosfest, where normally Gong or someone like that will headline. There'll be sort of 300 or 400 people in a field. It's just great. I mean, I love all that sort of thing. They're really good fun.
God, the more you talk, it's like, the band straddles post-rock, psych rock. It's just, it's
no, because
I wonder if that'll change when Kev starts singing. I wonder if he will be pigeonholed.
I wonder if they'll try and, but I mean, we ended up doing loads of gigs for like sort of neo prog bands, which I didn't know anything about neo prog. I didn't know anything, I didn't even know that music existed, to be honest, up until, it's not that I particularly dislike it, I just didn't know it there. But I mean, I like Frost. I think Frost are really good because they're, I like Frost, like Big Big Train, like Simon Godfrey's stuff. I like it when it's really well done, and it's like, and I suppose the stuff I like isn't really neo prog. It's the stuff I like tends to be like, I always think Frost sound like the Police, the Jellyfish and that sort of thing, and
Yeah.
So that's got a real XTC going for it.
Yeah, it's not like they're sort of aping 12th Night or somebody. It's a different thing. And Jem, he's just so gifted melodically, Jem. He's got a real musical brain on him.
Yeah, I mean, he's the real deal, isn't he? I mean, like I say, there's a lot of really talented people in that prog scene, and then there's a lot of stuff that's not really my cup of tea. But I mean, just because I don't like it, I don't think it's rubbish. I just don't think. And the other thing is, no one makes me listen to it. When I used to work in a record shop, people used to make me listen to bad records all the time, right? And I did moan about it, but I'm not going to moan about a prog rock band putting a record out because I don't have to listen to it. It will never enter my world. I don't have to sit and listen to it. I'm not going to moan about it. They're probably nice people. I don't need to feel the need to go onto a forum and be rude about things and stuff like that. You know, it's just life's too short, man. And it's just like, but yeah, it was weird when we were doing those sort of proggy ones, and then we'd come on and be really heavy or do like stuff that sounded like Black Flag or something. And people were like, I remember we did HOH prog, and the sound guy was like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "We don't know either." But it was great fun, and you know, like I said, Prog Magazine had been amazing. I mean, I think they could sort of see perhaps we were trying to do something slightly different, but not deliberately. It was just more of a case that we didn't just want to do stuff we liked doing. It wasn't anything, no contrivance to try and be, let's do something that's different. Let's do something we just did stuff that we liked off our favourite records, but our favourite records were kind of quite all different sort of stuff, you know what I mean? So.
It felt like Magnet was another one. I mentioned Spooky Action, but Magnet felt like it was another. You were getting even better known by then. Is that right?
We did Art Tangent on that one, and that which led to Rambling Man. So that was all the the big festival. I got us onto the festival circuit.
Oh, did it?
And when we got onto festivals, we could start to do. We started to do headline gigs, and then by the time Euphoric came out, we were selling out small London venues really fast. And I remember the promoter said to me, "It's like, do you want to do another couple of nights?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to do too much. I can't believe people have come for the first night." Because we sold it out in like a morning. We sold out the Black Heart. It was like 200 people, and we sold it out in like one in the morning. It was like, and the promoter was like, "You've got to do the next night." I was like, "I'm not doing the next night." I can't believe. But it didn't seem real that we get 200 people to come. But I think that was gradually building it up. And building up, and over all those years, you know what I mean? It's just lots of work. But what worries me is, will people come post-COVID? Will they be? It's going to be a whole new dynamic, isn't it?
Well, yeah, like we said, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But there's still a year to go ish before you kick in again. But the Euphoric, I still listen to the Euphoric. Well, I think you really hit the nail on the head with the sort of retro aesthetics of that one as well. I mean, the music's great as well. Truck is just that's such a great riff. Can you give us a blast of Truck? Actually, is that possible?
I have to tune down to drop B. You see?
Okay, I can pause it.
We'll go back to drop B, but it was kind of a I don't know if it's Strat or hold it, to be honest.
Do you use a different gauge E string to?
We got special strings that we use on our on our main guitar. I was talking to Michael Woodman from Thumper Monkey, not a really nice guy, and his tune is double A's at the end. He's got a drop A and another A.
Oh, right.
It sounds great. It sounds
in an octave. Well, one.
I don't know. That's really out of tune. But that's because I'm just working out all the sounds again. I don't think this one will. I don't think this guitar will take that tuning, to be honest. I've got like a fuzz setup on here, and I've got so I've got this got this little switching unit. Okay, that's better. So that's like it sounds weird, right? Because Steve's playing the other part of the chord, so.
I love it.
We had so much fun doing that record, and we had it was all a really good. And then it came out, and we got gigs with Hawkwind, and we did the Hawkwind gigs, supporting Hawkwind on a couple of gigs, and then I got sick. So it was like, it was like everything sort of come together.
Well, you weren't just sick. You were.
So we got to May. The album came out in May. Did really well. Got that
May 2018.
Did really well. Got a really good. The reviews are really positive. It sold better than any of their records. Everyone was happy. We made all the money back, which is the bit I was worried about. No one else was worried about it. I was worried about it, but we made all the money back. It was great. Everything was balanced. And then I got really ill. So we did the gigs with Hawkwind, and.
Were you ill during those gigs?
Yeah, I'd had surgery 3 days before. I think 3 or 4 days before the Hawkwind show. It was bonkers. So I had a tumour, cancerous tumour, and when I talk about it, it doesn't sound real, right? So yeah, I was basically
a bladder cancer.
And they took the tumour out, and then like 3 days. I think it was 3 days later we did the Hawkwind shows.
Were you physically well enough to do it? I mean, you're still recovering from surgery. Should you have done that?
You shouldn't have done that. I think it wasn't long after. I think we had to pull out the Cosfest gig because I think I was having surgery the day before. So that was the second batch of surgery. Something I can't really remember. It was all a bit of a blur because obviously it didn't seem real because the record came out. We did the Hawkwind gigs. I got really ill, and then. It was a few days before the Hawkwind shows that I had to do that surgery, and because it was a bit touch or go whether I was going to play. I was thinking, who else could we get on guitar to do those shows?
But you're irreplaceable in that line, really, aren't you? I mean, you are, aren't you?
Well, I was thinking about, who else we could get on guitar soon, but because we thought perhaps asking like Charlie or Carvus or one of our mates to do it, or Chris McGarrell or someone like that, and so when they could just play the parts. But it was fine. We did it. We did those shows, and it was. By the time we got to the October, we did Lexington. I was pretty much. I'd had all the surgery, and I was on the mend then. But it was a bit of a shock.
I mean, you must have felt, things were going so well with the album, and then you were diagnosed with cancer, and it just must have been like, for God's sake,
what have we got to do here? You know what I mean? But it was
worrying time for you.
I was absolutely terrified. I mean, I laugh about it. I try and not laugh about it, but I try and. I was terrified. I mean, because I've got a lot of responsibilities with a young family, and a lot of things. That's the last thing you want. And but like last week was the 3 years all clear from it. So. Which is unbelievable, but it's when you get taken into that room and they say, "Oh, it's cancer. We're going to do this." And it's like you can't process it at all.
Was your missus with you?
Yeah, and she was like, I couldn't process it. I couldn't deal with it because it was just bizarre. It was just like.
As soon as you hear the word cancer, you must shut.
You at least think, well, that's me done. Oh, I had a good run. It's like, but you try and process it because it's like you can't. And it was a bit dark for a while, to be honest. I had a few dark weeks. I just focused on doing those Hawkwind gigs.
Were you in pain, Matt? Were you in constant pain with it?
It was a painful process, the removal of it, and where they have to go into parts of your body that you don't want them to go into. But it wasn't. It was very uncomfortable and very painful, the surgery and stuff. And it was like, and I vowed to get lost quite a bit of weight and got quite fit afterwards and stuff. So to try and make sure that it didn't come back.
But was that you lost weight? Was there some sort of lifestyle change, or was that because your appetite was affected, or?
I just stopped drinking so much, really. And when I was doing those solo shows, I mean, it was almost like it was a gig, and then they were going to have 3 or 4 pints afterwards, and it was too much of that, really, I suppose, for a while. But
I suppose because it was your bladder, you sort of think. Well,
yeah.
Are they? Does excessive alcohol lead to that? I don't know.
Well, they reckon it's smoking, because I used to smoke in my 20s. I gave up smoking 16 years ago, but they reckon that smoking can be one of the contributing factors. So, but I would. You'd have to say that if you show kids what having bladder cancer is like, I think it'd probably stop a lot of them wanting to smoke. It certainly would have worked on me.
Yeah. Thank God! 3 years clear. That's such good news. I was so pleased to see that on Facebook.
Yeah. The doctor said to me, like, this is, if you get through 3 years, you'll be all right. Hopefully,
Yeah.
If you get through 3 years, you should be all right. So, but it certainly gives you a different. I think it actually made me more positive and more, just like happier, because it made me appreciate the things in life, and those gigs we did for the Euphoric was spent so much to me, and there's quite a few live recordings and stuff of those gigs, and they were just the best, because it was just like I didn't think I'd ever do them. So every gig I appreciated, all the time hanging out with my friends I really appreciated, and doing the shows and meeting people and stuff. I really, really enjoyed it, because I just thought I'd never do it. I thought that was it. I thought it was all over. And, to get the opportunity to do it and I just really appreciate it all, really. And it was nice, really nice. So sometimes something like that will make you appreciate what you've got, how lucky you are. And I feel really lucky to just be able to make records and have my friends and have my family and just be alive. Because I just never really appreciate what I didn't appreciate. I just didn't realise it could go away so fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really.
Enjoy every sandwich.
Yeah.
Everyone said.
Very wise words. Yeah.
Oh, Matt. Well, thanks for doing this. It's been lovely to talk to you. And I don't know. I'll just cut this bit. Do you want to do a bit of more guitar stuff that we'll put on as a second bit, or it's up to you?
I don't know what I've got. Guitar.
I was thinking, can you do a bit of loopage? Not now, but we'll
I haven't got a loop pedal set up in the.
Don't worry.
Like I say, like a lot of my main pedal board's in that storage unit.
It's in the lockup.
Yeah, because it was all supposed to be going to the Netherlands 18 months ago, which is bizarre. But luckily, I've spent loads of money on guitar pedals since then. So I can show you some of the guitar pedals I've bought.
Okay. All right.
Lovely.
Big Bum.
Which is a Big Muff clone.
Oh, of course.
I haven't got any my looper. I haven't got a looper set up at the moment.
Don't worry about it. I'll do it again.
Like I say, everything just went into storage because I was going to the Netherlands with it all. But I've got quite a few pedals and stuff about. But like I say, my main stage guitars, all that is all still in that unit. So, but I've got band practice tomorrow for the first time in 18 months, which is very, very exciting. We haven't been in a room together since the last show in March last year. So this is the first band practice. I can't wait, man. It's just like...
Of course, because you're all allowed in the same room now.
Yeah, it's the first time. And Stu's up from Dorset, so we can actually make some records and make some noise together, because everything else has been sending files around, which is lovely, and it's been great writing wise, and it's like been great for doing, like, let's do a weird middle eight. We'll have synthesizers on it, but God knows how we're going to play it all live. We might have to get a keyboard player. I think that might have to be the. Or we could use a click and use a backing track, which is what a lot of bands do for a few songs, just for one or two songs maybe.
Is it too early to ask about a title, or is that under wraps?
We've got one yet. Yeah, well, we've kind of got one, but we haven't decided. It's all. When we first write stuff, it's all got Orange is number 2. It's called,
Yeah, I remember you telling me this about the Euphoric time. They all had working titles, and some of them were great.
Yeah, do you remember Peaches or something? Yeah, and it's like, but so I think it's all done in this sort of coded sort of, everything has lots and lots of weird titles until it's finished, and we'll record stuff and then we might get the titles right later on. But some of it's because it's got words on it now. We've actually got we got titles for stuff. So I
was going to say, is it going to be Kev Feasy and his backing band, the Fierce and the Dead? Now he's.
Well, it might mean perhaps he can do some of the press stuff, which is I've done a lot of the press over the years, and probably people don't want to hear me waffling on about guitars, and it might be nice for Kev to do some more press and stuff, which would be really.
Well, I think I was trying to think back. I think I've spoken to Kev for Prog. Didn't we do something with the two of you separately, and then?
So yeah, for
was that for Prog magazine?
Can't remember. Was it for?
I can't remember now.
Action time. Did we do one around Spooky Action Time?
No, I think it was later than that. I think it might have been for the Euphoric, actually.
Because you did a really big one for Euphoric. You did a really good piece for Euphoric.
It must have been for that, because that's the only time I've spoken to Kev.
Yeah, so hopefully he'll become more the face of the band, which should make me very happy.
Yeah, but I suppose because you're very voluble and affable, and you were talking about the social media side of it. You're very used to putting yourself front and centre for these things.
Well, it's more of a case that I didn't have a choice. You know what I mean? No one else was going to promote it for me, and no one else was going to. What choice did I have? You know what I mean? It was either no one listens to it, or I mess about on the internet. And start with the YouTube stuff I've done. It's like, well, I can't go out and do gigs. I've done loads of stuff on Facebook. I'm not going to do TikTok because I'm not a 14-year-old dancer. No one wants to see a 45-year-old man dancing on TikTok. So,
Matt, I downloaded. I just did a piece. Don't judge me. I did a piece for Total Guitar on John Mayer. Yeah, he's got a new album out, and he's big on TikTok. So like 2 million followers. I could barely work out what was happening. It was even the GUI was like, I'm not quite sure. It's not even like Twitter or something. And I was thinking, oh, this isn't for me. I'm nudging 50. I feel like I'm straying into, somebody else's territory.
It feels wrong, doesn't it?
It did feel a bit wrong. Yeah.
Like the dad at the back of the disco. I tried TikTok as well. It's like, I don't understand. I think there's two things. I don't understand. I don't want to understand.
Yeah, do you know the nearer 50 I get, my mates and I, we sort of there's those three magic words, not for me. Yeah,
I'm all right with that. I don't. It's just I love hearing new. I mean, I think in terms of pop music, you listen to production on modern pop records. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Dense, really dense, complex production.
It's really changing, isn't it? Pop music. It's really becoming almost like sound design over composition.
So you've got very basic chord progressions, but this absolutely genius production, like the Billie Eilish records.
I was going to say her brother produces her stuff, Billie Eilish, and it's just him, a laptop, and Billie singing, and she's got an incredible voice. That girl,
a real character, isn't she? As well, she's really there's a magic to her, but there's a magic to those records. There's whatever's going on with those records. But I listen to like quite a bit of. Sometimes I'll go through Spotify, the pop playlists. And there's so many ideas production-wise. It's not like listen to pop records in the 80s and 90s, and they were just hooks, and the hooks were there. But production on the modern pop stuff's just virtuoso production.
But don't you think that the production's almost supplanted the hooks in a lot of cases?
Yeah. It's like the production is the hook.
Yeah,
and the melodies, but. In its own way, that's really interesting as well.
Yeah.
There's melodically, there's not a lot of ideas there, but in terms of production, there's loads of ideas, just incredible levels of detail. It's just so I'm quite hopeful for the future of music because those kids who are making those pop records, well, they're obviously massively talented, and when they get into harmony as well, they're probably going to make some really amazing records. And so there's I think. It's so easy to write off new music and what sort of younger people are doing. But when I listen to a lot of modern pop stuff, I'm just thinking, this is really clever. It's properly, there's stuff dropping in and dropping out all the time and really clever stuff.
Is it Olivia Rodrigo? Is that her name?
Yeah, I was listening to that.
Yeah, driving by your house. Old man tries to remember pop hit.
That's a contemporary sort of rock thing, but the production on it's really, 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 and
the vocal line. Yeah, there is hope, and you can understand the words.
I think, and I was watching a few things with people saying the guitars, because every few years they say the guitar music's dead, and then it just comes back again. It's just like you're never going to kill it because it just feels good. It's just I think we're going to get that production. Crossing over with interesting guitar sounds, and so much of what I want to do with guitar going forward is probably more about processing and trying to take things in a more about making things probably slightly less harmonically complex, but like I say, more taking influence from some of that production stuff. And I think bands like Radiohead have done it, where they've made it more about the sort of levels of production as well. Yeah. So I think there's still loads to do. I'm really optimistic about music for the future. I'm really optimistic. Yeah. I just think we're nowhere near there. And it's like, when people say it's all been done, it's like, well, it obviously hasn't, because I can sit Spotify and listen to a pop record that I don't particularly like, but certainly I've never heard anything like it before. So.
And there comes a point where I think perhaps correct me if I'm wrong, but as a guitar player, you reach a technical peak where you're playing as articulately and maybe as fast as you can. And you reach a sort of physical level and if you want to progress from that, you have to look at more tonal and harmonic things rather than flash or gymnastics.
Well, it's like, let's put this on here, look. Oh dear. Well, the stuff I'm mostly interested in now is strategy.
I was going to say, did you buy a tuner in amongst all these pedals?
I'll have to.
That's your Christmas present sorted.
My nice stage tune is on my pedal board at the like I say in the storage unit. He never got to the Netherlands, neither did I.
Nice.
So like stuff I'm interested in now tends to be more like, so I've got like an A minor thing going here. So it's more like substituting. So like so I've got an A minor.
Could you move your camera down so I can see your hands? That's
what you've got the like say I'm playing A minor there. And then like the substitutes you can play, so you can play like C major over the top, C major natural 7 there. And there's up with a 9 there. Back onto the A minor. So moving around those chords is kind of what I'm more interested in now. Is rather than doing the widdly stuff. Don't need that much delay. Where's that delay coming from? That's not even the right delay. So you've got that, like the inversion. So it's more about those sort of using chords like those, and then using like I've got this like delay on here. This is a quite interesting delay, but so this is a solid gold effects delay, and then you can make it glitch as well. So it's like the tape running out. But those sort of sound design elements.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's becoming more interesting to me than the those sort of sounds are more interesting to me now. So those sort of sound design things, which like I say, listen to the last Radio Edit album where they had all the stuff where it's just all reverb but no guitar. And those sort of things is kind of mixing some of the sort of jazz standards I learned when I was a kid. Those sort of jazzy chords and the dot. That's a good thing I learned from that guitar guy. A guy called Richard Bowman was my guitar teacher. He sort of taught me about chords, all the chord substitutes and or he could play what he could play over different things. And that was kind of the thing with him. It wasn't about playing it was all about playing the different inversions and expanding the harmonic vocabulary. And like I say, when he got me into that Alan Holdsworth stuff, really. So
yeah.
What would you want? The trouble is, people hear Alan Holdsworth, they go, "Oh, it's playing fast." It's like, yeah, but that's not really what he's doing. What he's trying to do is express himself. He's trying to play something that's expressive and interesting, not just noodly doodly noodly doodly. You know what I mean?
And Alan Holdsworth, his tone was just fantastic. I mean, he wanted to be a sax player, I think, didn't he? He was a budding sax player.
Yeah, it's very much about sax and phrasing, and the way he phrased things was so remarkable. But there's lots of interesting guitarists around now as well. As we talk about Holdsworth and McLaughlin, but you can talk about John Gomm.
Your mate John.
Yeah, he's lovely, John. Yeah, and John used to come and sleep on our sofa about 16, 17 years ago. He used to come and do my open mics in London. He was mates with the guy I shared a flat with, and it was bizarre. You get up in the morning, he'd be sat on the sofa playing this stuff. This how he plays now, and he'd just be like, "He's really good, yeah, John." But at the time, he sort of took it for granted that he was just our mate, and we used to stay at ours when he used to come down to London.
He's John's a great example of another sort of strand of modern guitar playing where I think of people like Mike Dawes as well. People who use the body and the whole percussive thing has become part of the harmonic language of the guitar. You have to. If you're a kid coming up playing acoustic guitar these days, you should have that stuff in your locker, shouldn't you?
Well, it was weird when John did the stuff with. He did the Passion Flower video, and that got 6 million views on YouTube. Wow. And that's kind of it changed things for him overnight, really, because he'd been doing open mics and he'd like headline an open mic night and things like that, and he'd been doing that for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden he had this massive audience. It was just brilliant for him because he used to sleep in his car and he worked so hard. But he's just a really nice man as well. I really admire his work ethic and the way he's done it. And he was another one. When I saw him, and I was really impressed with what he was doing, I thought, well, I don't want to do that. Why would I want to do that? Because he's doing that, you know what I mean? It's like I'm never going to be as good as him. You know what I mean? I'm never going to be, if you got, and it's like, when I did the loop stuff as well, I kind of took it as far as I wanted to do with that. And took all the. It's like the last record we took probably the stone and rock thing probably as much as you want to do perhaps, and then the next one we'll probably bring the synths in more and the sound design stuff and the, like I say, we'll show me the delay pedals and stuff and more of that sort of thing, and move away from the sort of stonery stuff. So
do you find that there'll be? You mentioned earlier that sometimes you got to lose a few people to pick more people up. Do you find that? Some people might be put off by the synthy stuff because they like the stonery, chuggy stuff.
But that's the advantage of being completely independent and doing what the hell we like. So we just don't. It doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter. I don't want to lose people really, but like if when we did the first single, we lost people when we did the first album because it didn't sound like Explosions in the Sky. There was that when the first single we did, people just were like, "Oh, it sounds like Godspeed You Black Emperor" and things like that. And it was like, well, I really like that sort of stuff, but I don't want to do that forever. You know what I mean? And I think, I don't think Godspeed You Black Emperor want to do that either. I think, why would you just completely knock off carry on doing one style just because it was successful? It's not like it's. Like massively successful to the point where we could make loads of money out of it. It was just, I think a lot of bands, they get a style and they sort of keep going around it because it's like a lot of the times when you go and see different festivals, you go to a math rock festival and there's like 15 people going, doing all doing a little of that business. And then or you go to a prog thing and there's a guy doing Steve Hackett, or you go to a psych thing and there's a guy doing Osrix, I mean, it's like, well, yeah, it's all right, but Osric's already done that, and Steve Hackett's already done that. You know what I mean? There's always that sort of, we're never going to be as good as the people really doing it. So, and a lot of bands, they get stuck into one style of music, and I think, let's get this boring. It must be boring.
Yeah.
But I suppose if you're doing that and you've got an audience that's quite big, it must be hard. With us, it's just like, we might sell another 50 less copies of it, but that's probably the worst that can happen. But I suppose with us, it's like, we can do what we want. And joking aside, we have been very lucky to acquire this sort of weird sort of culty audience. I can't complain at all. It's really lucky. Because a lot of bands don't, I don't forget that that's unusual.
Well, you worked hard at it. I think a lot of things have gone right for the band, haven't they? The stars are sort of aligned. I know what you're saying about you can't make a lot of money off it. I don't think many bands can.
I mean, I intend to complete. I'd like to make another few records. I'd like to make more Fierce and the Dead records, and that's always the goal, just to keep making records. And if we can keep doing that, I'm well happy. But I talk to a lot. I mean, most of my friends in bands are the same, and they're a lot more popular than we are. But they're in a similar mindset. Just keeping making records is the goal. And not to lose loads of money. to break even. I mean, like I read the guy from Hey Colossus's book. The bands like that, who I think are really good bands, and Evil Blizzard I really like, and bands like that. But they're not massive bands, but they've got a cult following. They can do what they like. Whereas some bands, they get to a certain level and they acquire quite a big audience, but they can't change their sound for fear of losing their audience.
Right.
I think a lot of the time those guys aren't very happy because they're stuck, because they have to knock out another album that sounds exactly like the last one, or sounds and we can just do what we like, really. So it's good.
Yeah. So there's a certain amount of freedom in not being massive.
Yeah, I mean, I think because we've got, like I say, as long as that we've got like 1,000 people who are pretty into what we do. I think one of the good things as well is that the people who do like it really like it and really fanatical about it and come to the gigs. And like when we did that gig and one guy had flown in from Italy. Wow. And then got another guy flown in from Dublin. I was like, this is really weird. It's lovely, but it's amazing that people sort of make that sort of level of effort.
What's the furthest you've travelled to see a band?
From Stowe. Not
from Stowe.
No, I don't know. I mean, I used to go when I was younger. I used to go and see Carcass and stuff. I used to travel around and see Carcass and bands like that, and it was always Carcass or Faith No More, Radiohead, those sort of bands. But not lately. I haven't been. Really, I think because living in London, you get spoiled anyway, don't you? You can see loads of bands anyway, so not anymore.
No. But even when things do get back, like the Borderline's not there anymore, the Astoria's gone, some of the great venues.
I think the London that I moved to has gone. I think I wouldn't necessarily have moved to London now if I'd been 20 years ago, because. Well, A, you don't need to be in London because you can do it on the internet now, and B, it's not the same. It's not there isn't really. There is still a rock scene here, but it's not. It's kind of like you said, the venues are gone, and it's not the same place, is it?
No. I walking down Denmark Street. I used to live in London. Just walking down there when it was really started being gentrified around there, and the 100 Club, not the 100 Club, the 12 Bar Club went. I was like, oh, well, that was symbolic, just.
Yeah, great. It was because when I was a kid, we used to come down to London and buy, King Crimson and Dead Kennedys records, and then walk around the guitar shops. That was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
But because you couldn't get those things anywhere else. But now I can go onto Amazon and order it to be sent to wherever I lived. And I can get guitars.
Yeah, but there's something about sitting in the guitar shop with it in your hands, isn't there? And just seeing it in 3D. But I know what you mean. It's just the world's changed.
It's not what it used to be anymore. I mean, I haven't been there for obviously since before the pandemic, but even then it was not the same really. There's two sorts of shopping there. There's the shops for the very rich people who like to collect vintage gear, and there's the shops for the people who buying their first guitar, I suppose, or sort of. And there's very little for people who just want to buy stuff that's going to make interesting noises on weird records. You know what I mean? So it's
well, you seem to have found a few places online.
I've got problems with ordering guitar pedals. I've got what else have got in there? I'll show you. Oh, that's quite good. It's my Mellotron one.
Oh, right. So does it sound like a Mellotron at all?
It sounds pretty much exactly like a Mellotron.
Awesome.
It does Mellotron. It's not. I mean, it's just nuts that I've got various guitar synthesizers and Mellotrons, but I think I'll still have to play keyboards on the stage. It's never quite, the guitar synths never quite work the same way.
Well, and on sorry, I totally lost my train of thought then. on the Euphoric, what was your when you're playing that? What's your main rig? What are your must-have? What's your must-have setup for that?
I've got pedal-wise, it's Line 6DL4 delay. I've got the Friedman pedal that I've used my main distortion now, which is the Friedman Overdrive BOD1. That's the Prog because of the octave effects, so the octaves up and octaves down. That's about it, really. I mean, I haven't really got hardly any modulation effects or anything. I've got into loads of modulation over lockdown, actually. I've got bought phasers and all sorts.
Do you think chorus is coming back?
I think the chorus sound that's come back is that really it's like chorus, wobbly chorus, like that vibrato sound. And so it's like a damaged VHS recorder sort of sound has come back in, hasn't it? What I really like. But I'm very conscious of not using that all the time because there's other people who've got that sound. But I like broken cassette players and stuff like that. I love those sort of sounds. But yeah, they're kind of, that's something that I've encountered recently that I really like. But yeah, it's a very basic setup, really. And I never had any switching devices or anything like that. I've got a switching device now. But it was all just done in the
switching device.
Yeah, like a switch pedal, and the Eventide H9 I was really into as well for reverbs, like the space reverbs and stuff, which is a ridiculous pedal, but it does all those sort of big spacey sounds, which is really cool. So just really, but it wasn't. I mean, like when we were doing the festivals and stuff, we went to Rosfest. You could only take 3 pedals because you'd have to take 3 customs. It was like, well, you've got to get it right because this is all you've got. Because you're going through. There's a man with a gun going to be pointing at you when you go into America. So, I can't even imagine going to the States again though and playing. I mean, we were so lucky to do that. I mean, I don't know how we ended up. It doesn't seem real to me that we did it, really.
Yeah, and then the whole European thing now is going to be a great deal more difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be a nightmare. I mean, there's things about. It's so many problems in terms of obviously the level of if COVID rises again in this country and in other countries, plus all the Brexit stuff. How are we going to play that gig in the Netherlands? I don't know, really. I mean, the people the government haven't negotiated it to the point where we could even know what can't apply for things. We don't know what to apply for.
Yeah.
There's nothing to, like when you go into the States, it's really hard to get into America because you have to apply for the visas and you have to get every bit of press you've ever got and really prove you're a worthwhile act and all this stuff, which is really hard. But at least you know what you've got to apply for. But I'm not even sure what visa we need to get into the Netherlands to work next year, and no one really does.
You can only hope that these things are going to be clarified over time, can't you? That they're going to get their arse together and sort it out. I'm sure it will get better, but I think at the moment we're going to focus on doing loads of gigs in the UK when things go. We'll do like 4 or 5 gigs for the next album because I want to get into the headlining thing now. I want to do things where we've got our own, so we're not opening for other bands anymore. I want to do things where we're playing to sort of 200 or 300 people a night, and we've got a guy with a projector, like we've got our own sound guy. We're not, the last gigs we did, we sold out London, sold out Manchester. We're not far off the point where we could do a UK tour of sort of 4 or 5 gigs and sell them out and make it worth doing. You know what I mean? So there's an audience there, and if we can somehow grow that to sort of 200 or 300 people a night, we're pretty much there in London. But like Manchester, the venue we played was about 100 people, but we sold it out. And if we can do, I think, if we could do Bath or Bristol and Cardiff, and yeah, so I think that's the next place to go with it, really. Yeah. I'd love to. Did you have support? Would you have support with you?
Yeah, well, there's lots of good bands around. You know what I mean? Formal Horse, I really like. They're really good. There's loads of really good bands. Actually, it's a really interesting time for bands. There's a lot of people coming with some newer ideas. And, perhaps that's things are starting to change a little bit. I mean, I'd like to do some gigs like I say, Evil Blizzard. I really like playing with because they're sort of they've got a good draw and they're a really good band. There's
plenty of good bands on Bad Elephant, your label. I love David's selection. Is he's very tasteful in who he puts out.
Yeah, David's a lovely man. He's really great, and he's really built that label up, put a lot of work into it, and he's done quite well, really, considering how bonkers the acts he signs as well.
Emmett Elvin.
Sorry?
Emmett Elvin.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's stuff that I said to him when he first started, like, if you signed 10 bands that sound exactly like Porcupine Tree, you probably make a few quid out of it. He's like, I don't want to do that. He gets continually sent bands that sound exactly like Porcupine Tree, and Porcupine Tree are brilliant, right? But the world does not need a spare Porcupine Tree. And so it's like, what most record labels do is they build up an audience around one act, and they get an email list, and they get they connect with an audience. Whereas David hasn't done that at all. He just signed wherever he fancied, and it's I suppose he can do that because it's not his main it's not his main thing. He does it because he loves it, and he's a good guy, really good guy. So yeah, no, it's he's got loads of good stuff on there. My favourite is Orange Clocks on there. You know, Orange Clocks.
No. Oh, I'll check them out. What style?
Orange Clocks are just they're like they're people I knew from years ago, but they're like a psychedelic rock band, sort of gongy, Hawkwindy. Oh, they're fantastic.
Okay. All right, Orange Clocks.
Orange Clocks, highly recommended. Highly recommend Orange Clocks. And they're really nice guys as well. But I think the other thing, David won't sign anybody he doesn't like as well. He'll only sign people he gets on with, and he said he'll only sign people he can go for a curry with, which is oh, bless him.
That's a good metric, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, Matt, it's been a pleasure to see you. It's been too long, mate. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, nice to see you.